All right, from a soundproof booth at the Alger Heights Library in Grand Rapids, Michigan, this is the Footy Museum podcast. Well, I should be clear that I, Justin Whitty, am the only one in that soundproof booth. My co-director and companion on this podcast, as always, Maria Van Dyke and Lee, is back.
Companion on the podcast and not in the sound booth.
And not in the sound booth, but back in Chicagoland. How are you, Maria?
I am good. You are in the sound booth that I learned how to read in.
That's right. Coincidence. I am in the neighborhood where you grew up. I'm here visiting, dealing with family things. But that is, you learn to read in this soundproof booth. That's how long it's been here.
Yes, they relegated me to. You should see a plaque with my name on it somewhere in there.
For all the loud readers out there, like Maria Van Dyke. So there was so much football played this last week and weekend. It's almost overwhelming with the start of, the second week of the championship. The Premier League started. We still got the World Cup going on.
Oh,
Leagues Cup.
Is it? Is it almost too much?
It felt like football? It almost felt like too much. What were you able to focus on this past weekend?
Okay, well, despite my best efforts, I did not wake up in time to see the first half of England-Colombia.
Yeah.
But I caught the end of that game, and it was sad because I was rooting for Colombia
I
there.
really was.
Yeah,
From
and now...
everything about them. And I learned, too, that their federation is awful. And they're only there by the force of will of the players, and they're basically battling another corrupt federation where there's been history of abuse, lack of support. So that on top of it, I was like, oh man,
it's insane.
To compete, to almost take out England and be dealing with all that crap, like I just
and really
think
the only reason they lost was just really bad luck.
Yeah. So it's heartbreaking, but I do think that I hope that everyone's focus stays on that team and what they're dealing with their awful federation.
Yeah.
Anyway. So you did catch the second half of that.
So yeah.
That's such a downer. Sorry.
Yes.
but it's true. It's just like,
wah, wah.
I mean, it's part of the story. Yeah.
Yeah. There's women's football for you. So caught that. Now I need to redecide who to root for, because all of our backups have been eliminated.
It's true.
So yeah, I guess maybe home team, Australia.
Yeah, at this point I'm
win.
Australia. I think it'd be a great story for the country.
Yeah, me too.
And Sam Kerr is kind of such an iconic player. So that's where, and an England-Australia match, that is going to be exciting because
yes,
that is, I know that Australia loves to beat England, if possible.
I think everyone
all
loves
that
to
history
beat
there.
England.
So.
So yeah, looking forward to that. And then, Premier League's back.
Yeah.
Let's see. I watched the City Burnley game, and I was just really sad because Vincent Kompany looked really sad the whole time.
Oh.
Watching his team lose, understandably. And I was also very sad because of how ugly the Man City kits are.
I found
real ugly.
I found the Arsenal Forest game fascinating because Matt Turner a week earlier was on Arsenal, and all of a sudden he got traded, and he was starting against them.
It's crazy.
And I thought he did decent too. I mean, it was going to be a tall order, I think, always for Forest to win that game. But 2-1, I think he had 5 saves. So that's one of the ones I definitely was paying attention to. And he looked so happy because he never got an actual league start with Arsenal. So that was his first Premier League start.
And he really, really just enjoys playing, right? Like he was playing for the U.S. during, what's the name of the cup?
Oh, he was playing for the Gold Cup. Yeah.
Yeah, he was playing.
He did both the league. He did the was it Nations League and then the Gold Cup? There's so many tournaments.
Yeah, and they don't normally use their starting squad for the Gold Cup,
Yeah,
right?
because the rest of it was like the C
Yeah.
team. Yeah, but he stayed.
Yeah,
there.
but he was still playing, so he just wants to play. It seems.
He seems like.
Watching Tottenham without Harry Kane was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's wild. My theory is that he's gonna play 3 years in Bayern, get some trophies, and then come back and then get his record and then retire.
You think?
But
I think they're
by
just
that
still
time,
working on
someone
that.
else might have the record. So yeah.
Man.
Because everyone's
wonder
like, I
what it
can't believe
takes.
he left before he was so close to the record. I'm like, well, he can always come back. He could always come back.
And he just wants to win a trophy somewhere.
Yeah, it's good for him.
Yeah.
How about your Leeds?
Well, they weren't broadcasting the Leeds Birmingham City game, and we couldn't find a stream, so I didn't get to watch. But I did watch back the highlights, and it seems like Leeds might potentially be in a plummet.
Oh no! Well, just think
They
about
lost.
they could. The Wrexham Leeds match coming in our near future is going to be exciting. Although Wrexham's struggling a little bit too, apparently.
Well, understandably so, because they went up. We went down. We shouldn't be struggling this bad, but like 2 of the best players are on strike because they don't want to play, because they want to get traded. And there's still no defense. And they were playing in a just stadium under construction. It was like, this is so different. So yeah, it just seems like, I don't know, the squad's not really there right now, and they just have to kind of
I think in England the word
rebuild.
championship is negative because there's the championship, which is so much rougher than Premier League, and then the final day of the season is called like Championship Sunday or whatever.
Yeah, but it's not for who's the champion.
No, it's for who
who's the
gets
loser.
dropped down to the championship. So it's like, I think that's a bad word in England.
Yeah.
It's like, if you want to dismiss something, you call it a champion or championship.
Yeah. Oh.
So.
Man.
Yeah, there was so much.
We'll see.
I too am still struggling with these World Cup times. Been watching the extended highlights of the games I miss, but I'm definitely gonna Australia, England. I'm gonna try to catch that full match for sure.
Yeah. What time of day is that out?
It's early in the morning.
Which early?
Which early? Very early.
Yeah.
It's either. I think it's.
No.
I think it might be not the 2 a.m. one because I don't think they're doing those anymore. Now that we're into the final rounds.
My parents are visiting next weekend. Our dedicated listeners, Rick and Kathy, are visiting next weekend, and I've informed them that we will be getting up at 5 a.m. to watch the World Cup final. So.
And then the Leagues Cup, MLS Liga MX continues. It's just wild. So England, Australia is 6 a.m. on Wednesday.
Nice.
Manageable. Okay.
Woo!
That'll be a very good game. Yeah, but I'm, getting, because obviously the Fire got knocked out, so they're the one football team in the world not currently playing.
Did you watch the Miami Charlotte game though?
I did. It was not as fun as the previous Messi games, but I think Charlotte was just so outmatched that even like the non-Messi Miami players were kind of taking care of things. I did see Messi got his obligatory goal. I think their next match is with Nashville, who's actually a pretty decent team, but I think the final might be, if Miami makes it, would be against Monterrey, the only remaining Mexican club, but who are actually very good, and they took care of LAFC by coming back from 2-0 down, 2-0 being the most dangerous score in soccer, and they won 3-2. And I think if it came down to Miami and Monterrey, I'd actually put my money on Monterrey because they're more of a complete squad than just
yeah.
And if they're willing to really put the defense on, Messi could see it. But it's still been fun to watch Messi, for sure.
Yeah. A little bit more of a challenge might be more fun.
But speaking of fun, we actually have a guest today, and his name is Billy Baumann, and he is one of the designers involved at Delicious Design League. And this company, these designers, they do all sorts of stuff in Chicago, from posters to all sorts of branding. You can check out their website at deliciousdesignleague.com. And they will also be working with the Footy Museum on the development of our official crest and branding. So it's super exciting. We've been talking to them. And we decide to have Billy on to talk a little bit about design and football crests and kind of where he's coming from as a designer. So shall we jump to that interview? Yes.
Let's go.
Sounds great. All right, Billy, welcome to the Footy Museum podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a real honor.
It is. Most people say that. It is one of the...
Yeah, it's hard to get on this podcast.
One of the that's what I keep hearing.
Top podcasts recorded from a soundproof booth in Alger Heights, Michigan. That's for sure. Well, let me specify. One of the top soccer-based podcasts. I don't want to.
Of course. Yeah.
So as we were saying in your introduction, at Delicious Design, you guys work with a lot of different sports branding, and you also have launched that a fun site called Super Design Bowl, which also deals with that. We can talk more about that in a minute. But I'm curious, when it comes to soccer, if you have any particular interest in any football badges or crests, and if that's something you're interested in and have worked in, and what your relationship is to that.
Yeah, I mean, where do you start with football badges? I mean, I could. This is going to lead into a giant conversation, and hopefully you guys have. Will let me go on and on. Well, it's such an interesting thing, right? Because obviously, as you guys know, the football badge traditionally in Europe is obviously an evolution of heraldry, right? And so, but when you bring it over to America, we fought a whole war over making sure that our logos look like wolves and bears, right?
That's right. That is a good Cliff Notes version of the Revolutionary War. Yeah.
Yeah, it was basically all about sports.
It was sports and design based.
Yes. It was capitalism. The purpose of capitalism is basically so we can have cool jerseys. Yeah. So and I should say that I think those two leading ideologies on sports branding are sort of the prevailing ideologies that have overtaken the world in many ways, right? So, like, if you look at Japanese football teams' logos, they're more European, right? And it's not because Japanese teams are relying on a history of their iconography to some extent. They're sort of just borrowing the European one. And what's so interesting is in America, we've started to try to borrow some of the European history as well.
For sure.
on logos. Where do you guys stand on that? Do you guys prefer the heraldry evolution or more of the capitalist?
Maria's done some research on the heraldry, so I'll let her take that.
I think we both kind of get a chuckle out of these, like the older English badges that are really deeply rooted and unchanged, and they're so peculiar in a lot of ways and so regional when it comes to the history of their town and their like original use of heraldry. But those also like make for a little bit quirky designs, but also a little bit complicated and messy designs. And so there's like this appeal when it comes to the more logofication and the corporate side of things, like the cleanness and like the easy branding, the easy application, like the new colorways that are really nice, but also they're a little sterile and a little bit
absolutely,
they can be a little bit too similar to one another. So it's like when you see one that really stands out, you're like, oh wow, that's amazing, on either end of the spectrum.
It's true.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think maybe a good example is what Juventus did.
Yes.
Yes.
We
Right?
did a whole show on that. Yeah.
Which is like, I actually love it because I think it does simplify to an extent, but it's still original.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people hate it too.
It was polarizing for sure.
It is polarizing, yeah. But I think it does. Okay, so if we get into logo design 101, like mid-century logo design, there was the technology at the time, right? Everything became a symbol. Everything became really simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so sports teams maybe took about 50 years to catch up to that idea, you know?
Yeah.
But now we see that reflected in sports logos, especially our hometown Chicago Fire, this is sort of the mid-century simplification of a sports logo mark, which is interesting, but it's a complete 180 from what we had in Europe. So it was interesting to see the Italian team. Of course, it's an Italian team, but to do something that is so simplified, modern, I guess.
Yeah.
I think where I come in, and I think Juventus is an excellent example, is I don't have an issue with a smart, clean, contemporary design that's very minimal. But I feel like if you're going to do it, you actually have to have the guts to do it fully. And in which case, I think they did. They didn't. It wasn't a compromise. I think going in like we want a simple, very identifiable badge that can also be adaptable to so many sources, and we're sticking with. It keeps that edge because it is so dramatic. I think when you come where it gets problematic with the two types for me is when people try to balance it out too much, like the design by committee gets too heavy, because if you're trying to please both, saying like we want to call back to that kind of history and quirkiness in the more heraldic badge designs, but we want all the benefits of a modern design, then I think you start to get really bad designs. And I think that's where I fall, is like, I don't know if I favor one or the other, but I feel like being clear which one it is.
I think that raises a good point. Personally, I am a fan of good design when it's good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if it's what era it comes from. Like if it's well crafted, if it's done well, if it's thought about, if it's considered, if it's balanced, if it's well executed, all these things, then I like it, for the most part. And in that one, I think the Chicago Fire one is it's well executed. I think it misses the mark in some ways, but it's well executed. It's well done. It's good. But I also really enjoy the old vintage logos that were devoid of any technology. It's so hard because when you have the technology available to you, and you're able to make something pixel perfect, right? How do you justify making something? Let's maybe use the word quirky on purpose.
Yeah.
Is there a place for quirky in contemporary sports logo design?
We have this like thing we keep coming back to where we're like a logo, like for sports, our favorite ones Or like it shouldn't look like it had to have been made on a computer.
Yeah.
Like whether or not it was, it just like, if it's going to be timeless, like sometimes the computer does that pixel perfect effect does kind of sanitize it in a way.
Yes, that's a good word for it. Yeah. Because it removes any sort of warmth, possibly.
I think there's always room for whatever you want to make room for, right? Because you kind of, designers or clubs in this case working with designers can kind of decide on whatever. If your question is, does it read authentic, trying to bring in more idiosyncratic elements to like a contemporary design, I guess I think that just comes down to like, what are they based in? Because I think with a lot of the older designs, especially out of Europe and England, I think a lot of Americans react to them because they point to that broad history that those teams have. And I think a lot of U.S. soccer fans have a desire to be part of something with that history.
Yes. You're exactly right. But it's sort of stolen valor, right?
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, now I'm an Arsenal fan now. I know all the songs. I have that long. Well, you do kind of, but it's not. It's different from like living through the 80s in like Chola devastated England, and like the one thing carried through your family is that you go to the pitch every week. There's a different history.
No, Justin, tuning in every Saturday morning is the same.
Getting that Peacock subscription, it's the same thing. It's true. I shouldn't. I apologize.
So do you guys have just a love for the old logos? Like, where does your love begin of that? Because you have the love of the history, or is there just something so charming about the unpretentiousness of a vintage logo? I'm putting words in your mouth.
Rhea, did you want to answer first, or do you want me to?
I might challenge you a little bit on whether or not they're unpretentious.
Yeah.
Because I think they might be pretentious in a slightly different way. Because I think they hold a lot of regional pride. But maybe. I always find that my favorites are from the 70s.
Okay.
I don't know what that's about. Now I forget the original question, but yeah, they are charming, and I do think it is kind of a reaction to being, like, growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s. I think the way the logos looked overwhelmingly corny in comparison in like a 90s way, and instead of like corny in like a old-timey way, So it's just a different level of corny all around, I think. And then every once in a while you get one that's just overwhelmingly cool, and that's special. But
I think there's also a combination, right? Because one of our favorites is Sheffield Wednesday, which just has this very bizarre owl. And I think what happens with some of the older ones is, even through updated adaptations, they're still trying to weave together a lot of symbols that are important to that club. So that creates unexpected combinations or juxtapositions. So I think that's inevitably going to make it more quirky and interesting, but it's because of the history. But to the broader question, like what do, in terms of reaction, I also just like good design, and I like when I see something unexpected that is unfamiliar and still works. I think when you have any defined area of design or art, so in this case, like, we define just by soccer badges, and there's such a wide example because football, being played everywhere, you have this huge range in which to compare. So anything that kind of stands out as a unique solution is what I'm drawn to, because then you can say, oh, well, that is a really fascinating solution to what is a very set challenge, right? It's very similar around the world. So, And often for me, it does have some of that quirkiness that I like that question of like, I wonder what the story is of that, why is that elephant like eating a parrot on top of, a gouged out eyeball or something like that. That would be, take notes. That would be good. Those
Yeah.
some good design.
But it only works if that club has been around for 100 years. Because
That's
if
true.
an expansion MLS team tried to put a poorly drawn owl on their badge, with whatever city it's in, and even if it had something to do with the town and the history of the town and all that stuff, it wouldn't fly. It wouldn't work,
The owl wouldn't fly.
Yeah, the owl wouldn't fly. But it just never, because it goes back to the stolen valor argument. It goes back to the idea that you're trying to give this thing 100 years of history when there isn't any. So it comes off as false to some degree. It's interesting. Several years ago, and I know we're talking about football, but I'm going to talk about American football for a second. I redid the Bears logo. Just for fun, just as an exercise, because so when you look at the Chicago Bears logo, if you really look at it, because it's so ubiquitous and you just see it and you're like, okay, it's the Bears logo. But if you look at it, the logo has been like photocopied and faxed and then vectorized. It's a bad drawing that has been copied and then vectorized, because all the details are really bad.
Yeah.
It's really messy. All the details are bad. So I kind of just I was like, okay, what if we did a modern cleanup of the logo, right? Which I did, which was just sort of a fun exercise, and tried to keep the same spirit. And I ended up, if you're a designer and want to have a lot of fun, redesign a team's logo and then put it on their Reddit page and watch the fans lose their minds, because they hated it, right? Even though I honestly feel like it had the same
different. Yeah,
it's not that different. It's just cleaned up, right? But they sort of lost it, and I even had people challenging me on why the bad drawing was a bad drawing, and it became this whole almost. I really had to sort of question myself, because I didn't know how to answer that question.
Right.
I was like, well, isn't it self-evident that this is like, it's just a bad drawing, of a bear. Like, and I was like, well, how do I explain why a drawing is bad? And it became this whole very interesting sort of thing. But it raises a larger point about how even when something is bad, it has emotional meaning and connection to the fans, that no matter how bad it is, you still love it, and that's what's important. But if you're an expansion team, you can't do that. You have nothing to fall back. You have no history to fall back upon. So it has to be good out of the box, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of people miss. I mean, I think, well, that's why I think most MLS contemporary newer badges are all designed by the same guy, because he kind of like came up with a code that they like. Is it Matt Wolf? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he did the recent Fire one. He did LAFC.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of them, and it's kind of that balance that fits within their look. But I wonder about your question when I think about like USL teams, or like I think of Forward Madison. That's a pretty quirky. It's still contemporary, but it's pretty quirky, and they have like a flamingo.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just like the ambition of trying to be a top level. I have a little kid staring at me right now.
Well, I think when you get into the lower leagues is where things can get really interesting, right? Because there isn't a magnifying glass on the on the branding so much, right? Yeah. And there's also it's always so very interesting because who is approving these things?
Right.
Yeah.
Right? It's someone who has the biggest bank account. It's not someone who has the best opinions and taste. But you know what I'm saying?
But to summarize, you're saying that another argument for pro rel in the U.S. is just design based, because if we have teams coming from the bottom, they're going to have some of that quirky history to deal with. So we'll have better designs once they get to the top, right?
Yes, you've made it's like I wasn't trying to make that argument, but yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
So what football badges do you like that stand out to you?
Man, I like what is that team? They're in Spain, the IO, the or are they French? Several years ago, as I delay here, I actually did a list of the worst and best logos from all the top leagues over the world. Over the world, is that a word?
Around the world.
Around the world. Thank you. Yeah. So this was several years ago. I just for fun. I think I was bored. I'm always bored. I'm always trying to find ways to not do work, and a good way is to. Okay, so listen, I can go through the whole list of the best badges around the world, right?
Yeah.
So Olympic that's the League One team. So French, right? I really like it. It's self-contained. I love things that have a container. I always, if you look at any of my work, everything has a container. Everything like every logo is a badge in some sort of way, because. And I think it's based on the fact that when I first started graphic designing professionally, I would have to put like sponsor logos on things, or like you'd have like I'd have to do a tie-in with Energizer batteries and like a Disney movie or something, right? And the hardest thing to work with is a logo that doesn't have. It's just like some type,
right?
Yeah,
that's not in a shape.
There's no edges to push off of, yeah.
There's no edges, right? But if something is in a shape, I can put that on anything. I can put that over a photo. I can put that over an illustration. I can put it on any color because it doesn't. I don't have to worry, right? Because it's self-contained. So I love the color, the gold, the blue, the red, sort of just classic. My favorite Bundesliga is the Borussia Dortmund. It's really modern and simple, and it's just so clean and sort of ugly. It's ugly, but it's like good ugly.
Stark, yeah.
It's so distinctive, yeah. And are they
for the La Ligue?
And they also, we like them because they're one of the few German teams that never had a swastika in their patch, so that's good.
Oh, did they?
Are you sure about that?
Or were they? Or was it? I thought we looked at the. Am I wrong? Was that?
I thought we looked it up, and
it was so.
They had.
I think they were the only ones.
Oh no.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Nope. They're good.
Sorry.
They're good.
Yeah, they're good that way.
Wow.
Okay, phew.
Wow.
They just had a tiger
great.
at some point. See, that's another plus. Okay. No, that is such
a
distinctive. I mean, you just have to glance at it, and that one's quirky in a different way, where it's like, it really shouldn't work. I don't know. It seems like, why does that work? Why is that appealing? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it really shouldn't. It's kind of clunky and it's kind of ugly, and but it's in a circle. That's why it works. If it wasn't in a circle, it wouldn't work. The circle, the container fixes all. And then for the La Liga, I don't even know if these are in the top division anymore. This is a couple years ago. I don't even know how to pronounce these, which is so sad. Osasuna. It's just a cool badge. It's the same colors as the Olympic one. It's the gold, the blue, and the red. I just like it. Let's see. Who else did I have? Juventus for Serie A. Yeah, I tell you who has the hardest one to pick the best of is Premier League, because they're all fucking ugly.
They are pretty bad. I'm
not
really
supposed to say bad words in this. There's not. I mean, maybe this was a couple years ago. Maybe there's some better ones now. But I picked Chelsea. I didn't want to pick Chelsea, but it was kind of the best of the worst in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm really left flat with all the Premier League logos.
I'm a fan of Forest, even though it's not contained. But I do like how they maintain kind of their mid-century bold design. I like Forest.
I do like it too. I think when I did the list, they were still in the championship.
And I respect how far out Wolves is. I don't know that I like it, but it's like it looks like a fifth grader design, like a superhero sign insignia.
Yeah, that would go good on it.
But it is at least it's bold, which I like. I think that and Villa's close too, but Maria, you like Man Cities. I don't.
You keep saying that.
But don't you?
I said I like Man Cities 1970s.
Oh, 1970. Okay.
And
so she loves the
problem
Man City.
The problem with the Wolves is I'm just so bothered by the angle of the ears.
Yeah.
And the hexagon and the fact that they don't match.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And it's symmetrical, so it still works. It's still okay. But everything seems to follow the angles.
Yeah.
Right? Even the eyeballs are they're maybe they're not, but it looks like they're reflective of the angles of the hexagon.
Yeah.
And the fact that the sides of the face are not just throws me off. But whatever.
Billy, can I tell you my favorite Premier
Please.
League logo? 1973 Leeds United.
Okay.
Oh, but that's championship.
Are you familiar with this one?
I'm looking it up right now.
It's great.
What is that?
Exactly.
What is that?
It's a
What is
football
that supposed to be, though?
It's an L and a U.
that make a football. Yeah.
And they make like a square football.
Wow.
It's referred to as the smiley.
Oh, is that it really? That's what it's referred to?
That's what they call it, but it's an L and a U.
I think Leeds are such a great example. They have that bold design. They have the kind of interesting peacock ones from the early 80s.
I like that.
They have the horrible police badge
horrible.
one, which they use now. And then the even worse kind of like Columbus Crew-esque 2018
That Columbus
one.
Crew one lasted 1 year.
That was...
And then they went back to the other terrible one.
Wow.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of the smiley.
So
yeah, obviously the biggest issue. Sorry to overtalk you. The biggest issue with their current logo is this weird like scripty.
Oh, the font
uppercase.
is horrible.
Yeah, like what is? What
well, they used to have just the script as their logo too.
So
it used to be just LUFC with no.
Yeah,
no
but that's okay. But for some reason that is
this is a great example of
quirky.
them. Yeah, they're just trying to pack everything in because they still have the Yorkshire rose in there, and then they have that on their little police badge, and then they have the script letters, and it's like too many things.
Well, it's also
smiley.
bad shaped with kind of a star, so it looks like so policey. It's just, and it's so boringly symmetrical. Like it's just like it's too bad. So
there's an issue with there's level of detail, and like if your logo is going to have like a certain level of detail, then that level of detail needs to be reflected through the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
but with the Leeds one, the shape is really simplified and modern and clean and whatever, it's fine. But then you have the flower and the type, which are the level of detail are completely different.
Yes, that's a very good point. Yeah.
So yeah, so much of design is basically how I teach my students is like it's basically visual rhyming, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like if a logo is a song, it's just like, okay, let's all make sure we're playing the same song here with the same types of notes and the same chords. And these are like they had two different songs and they smashed them together, and it doesn't always work.
That's a great segue to ask, when you are design, because I know you've designed for different sports teams, schools, all sorts of things. When you are tasked with that, how do you go about? Because even from this conversation, right, it's clear that a lot of what people like about these you can't necessarily generate from scratch, right, with the history and quirkiness. You want to be bold, but also you have a client, and you have to make it clear with who the team is and have a nod to whatever came before it. So where do you start? How do you start this process?
Well, that's an interesting question. And let me first say that I don't that's only a small part of what I do design wise. So I wouldn't call myself like the biggest expert in sports branding. I've thought about it a lot. I do run a website. I've obviously I have a lot of opinions, but it's not what I do every day, right?
So I was just I was saying is that you're the premier. You're kind of the grand poobah of American heraldry.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying. I think you took it too far. So as the ultimate expert on the subject,
yes.
Defining voice in this area, could you tell us how you started?
Well, there's sort of two different ways to go about it, right? So it depends if the team does have history, or what if the team doesn't have history? You know what I mean? In many ways, like the Bears logo or like the Chicago Fire logo that just came out, they relied heavily on the history of the logo that had been established, right? And I think that's, there's a difference between evolution and revolution, right? So when Chicago Fire came out with the logo that only lasted a year, which is so sad.
Which I liked, by the way.
I didn't like it. Let me just put it that way. And then that was a revolution, right? Mm-hmm. And if for a team that has at least some history, it's really hard to do a revolution, right? Mm-hmm. Because everyone has very strong feelings, emotions about moments that they were at a game or a place where they remember the most heartbreaking loss. Because I heard that's what really makes a fan is like it's not the wins, it's feeling awful when they lose.
I've heard that too.
And so all those emotions are wrapped up in a logo, right? So doing a revolution, completely changing it, is it's going to be a really bitter pill for those people to swallow. So as a designer, you have to know that, right? And you have to say, as much as I want to rewrite this whole thing, you can't in a lot of ways, or you shouldn't in so many ways. And you have to sort of, I think, evolve the logo, which makes a lot more sense. But if you're dealing with a brand new team, then you basically just will deal with a lot of times just the history of the town and try to work with those ideas. And and obviously with American sports, it becomes much easier because they have mascots. Whereas where Leeds United is, I don't know, what are they, the Owls or something? Who knows?
No,
the Swans.
Peacock.
The Peacocks, right?
They did have an owl at some point as well.
I actually don't know. They have multiple animals who are.
Yeah, but their animals are really secondary.
Yes.
Whereas in America, it's really front and center.
Yeah.
So.
Except in soccer, I would say. Except in soccer, yeah.
Yeah, except in soccer, but not always. When the MLS first started, it was way more about front and center with their mascots or their nicknames, at least, don't you think?
Maybe not mascots. I mean, you had the Dallas Burn, was that what they were? The Chicago Fire, New England Revolution. So it's more like they tried to find distinctive regional names. I think that the only one that's weird is the LA Galaxy. I guess because of all the stars in LA, maybe. So it wasn't as animal based. It wasn't as animal based. But,
no, you're right. You're right.
So nice theory, but boy, you really missed the mark. But I think that's a good segue to say, as Marie and I are starting to reach out to different clubs as we put together our first traveling show, we've had this awareness that we really need to get a more professional logo for our project, especially since it's so much about design, and also get some design direction. And we've that's how we got introduced to you, and we'll be working with you on the development of first and foremost a crest for the Footy Museum. And I think related to all the questions and conversations we've had centered around this dilemma of when there's no history, how do you build history? When there is history, how do you acknowledge it? And since that is so much of the discussion about football crests and design, how they point to these histories, that is really what engages Marie and I talking about. We were talking about how could we bring that into what you do for us. And you had a really interesting idea that I think we're going to explore. Do you want to explain that a little bit?
Well, the simple fact is we don't. This is this isn't the best song in the world. It's just a tribute, right, or something. What's that Jack
tribute.
Black song? Yeah, it's a tribute. So in the same way that the Footy Museum doesn't have its own history,
right,
but it does have all the history. It doesn't, but it does. It has every history. And so we're going to be doing, the idea is to do the logo of the Footy Museum throughout the ages, which will hopefully be a reflection on the different eras of graphic design that we see throughout football branding. And I'm so excited to give you the quirky old school logo, right? But then also give you like the MLS logo, and then end with the big ending where we somehow combine both of them in some sort of modern contemporary mark, right?
As the Bard said, the best of both worlds.
That's right.
Yes.
We end with the angry cardinal of the Arizona Cardinal.
Yeah. But that does raise a good question. What is the mascot?
No, wow.
So I can design something. No.
That's a good question. Because if the early ones, I think it would have to be a small dog of some sort. I don't know.
I was thinking more of like a toe.
A toe? Like the origin is it was actually a foot fetish museum.
Yeah.
Through miscommunication, it evolved into a soccer focus. We do get a lot of hits from people looking for that other. Interesting.
Oh my no. Oh God.
Oh, that's great. So you mentioned your other. That's gonna be great. We're gonna be talking about that more on the pod, and we're so excited to see that come together. And I think it's such a perfect way to approach it because that is so much of what we talk about, and it allows for a lot of fun too. A lot of just I can't wait to see the solutions. But
it doesn't.
You mentioned your other website.
Sorry, go ahead.
The Super Design Bowl, is that what it's called?
Superdesignbowl.com. Go there and see a lot of really bad logos.
So that is just open to anyone who put up challenges to redesign existing teams' logos and then people submit redesigns.
Well, we do. There's an apply page. You go to the apply page. You email you email us and you say, hey, here's my website, like of my work, and here's like 5 teams that I would love to do. And then we try to find you a matchup.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So basically we're like, oh, this guy said Patriots and this guy said Patriots. Let's let them battle it out. And that's basically it. It's kind of just, it's just a fun exercise, a fun thing to do. I blatantly ripped off the idea from years ago. There was a website called Type Fight.
Okay.
And they would have designers redesign just a letter. So like I redid the letter D, and some other guy did the letter D, and then people would vote on it who had their favorite letter D. And I was like, which was a fun idea, and it ended up. I think the site still exists. It doesn't function anymore, but I think you can go to it.
I found Type Fight on Tumblr.
On Tumblr?
I guess maybe this is an archive.
Oh yeah, probably, yeah. But it's actually a really great resource just to creatively to get ideas for like executions of colors and patterns and it's sort of just like a shotgun of ideas into your brain, which I love. And I thought, this would be a lot of fun to do with sports logos.
Yeah.
Especially, given the natural competition nature of sports, that this would be a really fun thing to do. So, it's sort of just a thing I do on the side. And it's been interesting. It's how do I put this? It's been really cool to see the different ideas, but it's also been really cool to see like the bad ideas.
Yeah.
The bad ideas like sort of opened me up to the like how do I put this in a gentle way? Like people have not thought about this stuff as long as I've been thinking about it, obviously.
I see.
Like
it made you feel confident in your knowledge.
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess I don't want to put it that way. Like for instance, we redid the Blackhawks, the Chicago Blackhawks. And in the prevailing thought of any contemporary designer, I would think, is obviously we're not going to put a Native American in this logo anymore. Right? And then we did the Blackhawks, and one of the designers did an illustration of a Native American, and I'm like, and I had to ask myself, am I even going to put this on the website?
Right.
But they do it for free, and that I'm not. I would feel bad if I said, sorry, I'm not going to use this. So we put it up there, but I'm like, man, it's so interesting to see choices that some of these designers are making that I would never make.
At the same time, I imagine sometimes bad designs, there's probably a bold aspect to them. They're like, wow, they really went there, but there's maybe something there that they didn't quite reach. But because maybe it's such a different direction, you can maybe discover something as well, positive as well.
Yeah.
Or not.
I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting on that to happen. But yeah.
Maybe just more people need to know about Super Design Bowl and submit their work, their bold, risky designs.
Yes,
that's
please,
just encouragement.
Please.
And then Delicious Design League is deliciousdesignleague.com. Do you have a personal website too?
No.
Okay.
I kind of just go with. I kind of. Most people don't even know me by Billy Baumann because I don't.
Because you go by Billy Bowman. I know it's confusing.
Because I'm not looking for any sort of personal recognition whatsoever. So everything just goes under Delicious Design League, and so at Delicious Design League, we've got some sports branding stuff, but
you've all sorts of things,
everything.
Posters, really great stuff. People should
posters.
go check it out.
Thank you.
So I think that's about it. I know we're really excited, and we'll keep everyone up to date. And then eventually, as we switch to more visual broadcasts, we can share as we go on as well. Maria, did you have anything else for Billy before we let him go?
No, but it's been great talking with you more, Billy.
Yes, I hopefully I was able to be slightly coherent. I feel like I have a lot of ideas about sports branding, and I kind of just like to. They're all trying to come out of my mouth at the same time. So hopefully it was okay.
No, it was great.
It was good.
All right. So
Awesome.
thank you so much. And we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye, Billy.
Bye.
Oh, that was great. That was really good. I really, I feel like he could talk about the minutia of design for forever.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to have him on again.
Yes, I think we will as we evolve. And his idea of like the whole, as if the footy had this history. So through the logo can also talk about the evolution of design through football, I think is such a great idea, and it's going to be really fun. And most importantly, just provides so many merch options. I'm just so excited about the merch.
Well, we're going to have a dog clothing line and everything.
The footy dogs. So what are you looking forward to this week, Maria?
This week, I am looking forward to trying to catch the remaining World Cup games.
Yeah, I think that's number one on my list. Yeah.
I think that's got to be the priority for me because it was a hard time difference, and I feel like it kind of happened all while I was asleep. So I'm really going to try and watch what I can this week and enjoy it.
I am as well. And I think I'm going to break down and buy that Columbia kit also. It's just like to show support for that awesome team. And it's like the best. It's really one of the best kits out there. And they're coming out of the tournament, I think, because there's always the winners, but then there's the teams you look back on who really defined it. I think that they were one of those teams for sure. And it's sad to go, and I'll have to maybe pair it with a Japan kit because those are also awesome.
The Japan kit's so good.
Yeah.
Wait, which Japan kit though?
Well, I think I would do the new one. I like them both. They always have just knockout designs.
I think if I was going to buy one, I would get the blue origami one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking forward to.
That's the one I've had my eye on all
World
season.
Cup week, and then I'll probably catch some Leagues Cup. And then I think I'm realizing I don't know that I have time for all of Premier League Sunday, so I'm going to have to just pick a game each week. And I was excited to see Luton Town was supposed to have their home opener next week, but their 4,000 seat stadium is not ready. So they postponed their match against Burnley, which was going to be the home opener. So I think that's going to be an interesting storyline to follow. Like when they are finally ready, how ready they really are, and what that looks like will be fun to watch. So
that is interesting.
All right. I got to get out of this booth and drive back to beautiful Oak Park, Illinois. So that's all I have. Anything else, Maria?
No, that's all I got.
All right.
Drive safe.
We will talk to everyone next week. Check us out at thefootymuseum.com and make sure to follow us on all of the socials, except for X. We're not really on the X.
No.
Whatever that is. But, okay, everywhere else. The Footy Museum. All right. See you next week. Or hear you next week. Or goodbye till next week. All right, bye.
Bye.